you were saying something about there's maybe two factions, and I've heard this from David Wilcox and others, that there's one faction of this, you call it, for lack of a better word, the Illuminati or something, that wants this information to get out, and there's another faction that does not. Could you say more about that, or what you've heard about that?
I don't think it's quite as monolithic as the way you're presenting it, but it does seem that there are people within our government, within intelligence agencies, that do believe that it's time to have some sort of disclosure, or at least to get the ball rolling in that direction. And there are others that probably feel that it's against our interests. They might feel that they are protecting us, that the truth is too scary, that we're not ready to handle it. And the other group probably feels that we're ready to handle it and that there's only, a lot of benefits for the knowledge to come out. And so it does seem, and I'm just relating this to you from secondhand experience. I don't have direct knowledge of this, that there really are differing agendas here. We're seeing this kind of go on right now. We see this kind of politically go on. It's under the surface, but if you kind of read between the tea leaves, you can see that there are different agendas going on here. Even with this stimulus package that's going through Congress right now. There are differing agendas, and there are very different views on how to get these things done. And the same thing applies to UFO disclosure. And I don't necessarily want to judge the people that are against it, because they may know more about it than I do. They may have good reasons for not disclosing everything. But we do need to get the ball rolling in that process. There are procedures that are ways for Congress to learn about classified data. Some of the people in Congress have security clearances. They're capable of looking at these in terms of the regular sorts of posts that being involved with military oversight and so forth. So we do need to get the ball rolling in that direction, because the costs of not doing it are really too consequential. Other countries are going to eventually start doing this anyway. We're already seeing this in Britain. We've seen this in a lot of Latin American countries. France has come out and said that we need to do this. And really, it's kind of like an open secret now. We're one of the last holdouts to even deny that this is a real phenomenon. We're still in a situation where we're denying officially that this is real, even though we're having sightings. And the sightings are coming closer to us, mainly because there's so much technology, and there's YouTube and the internet, that there's ways of sharing the information quickly, that it's going to become unfeasible very soon to deny that this is a real phenomena. Now, how we deal with this? We can do it. The American people are obviously strong enough to deal with all sorts of difficult challenges. We've been through different world wars and various different challenges in the past. We can handle this. We just need a process and a procedure, and we just sit down and we start slowly releasing information. We have town hall meetings, and it's just done in a slow, careful way, and we will deal with this. It's the beginning of a new story for us, but it's a step that we have to take, because we're not kids anymore. We know this is going on, and there's no point in staying in the nursery school.
Right. Let's face it. The Brookings report is 50 years old now. I mean, it said, people would be scared because because of was it?
That was their conclusion at the time, and the Condon report was done just down the road here at CU. And University of Colorado, and then they came to the conclusion it's not what people thought. They actually didn't conclude it wasn't real. They concluded it was no threat to us militarily, but they didn't say it wasn't a real phenomenon. And we knew that there was an agenda from the beginning there to do that. Condon said in the beginning he was going to come out with that conclusion from the beginning. But it's time for a new study. It's time for a new perspective. We're 40 years past the Brookings report, and a lot of kids, and we've grown up around these phenomena. If you talk to younger kids, I don't think they're afraid of this at all, because they've seen so much of it. We've had Star Trek. It's a different era now, and we're not in a Cold War anymore. It's a totally different situation. Even Ronald Reagan said in front of the UN, he mentioned this a couple times. A lot of people wonder how much he actually knew. But remember when he said, I often wonder what would happen if there was an invasion from space, how much we'd all come together. Well, wouldn't it do that, and isn't it time to do that?
We have some graphics up.
Let's talk about them.
I know they've been going up for a while here. Can we just put some up and we can talk a little bit about some of these?
I'd like to talk about this. This is very important. The crop circles, have an extraterrestrial connection from the beginning. Or I should say a UFO connection, because I don't actually know who's in those UFOs. That's a question to be determined by these upcoming disclosure projects. But they are associated with crop circles from the beginning, Joe, because going way back even to the 1930s and 40s, people were associating simple circles, not these more complex ones, where we've identified some of the groups of humans involved, but the more simple patterns or simple groups of circles going back to the 70s and 80s and earlier, where people see a disk, a ball of light, and the UFO is seen there later on. It also happened in our country. If you look at the history of crop circles in the United States and Canada, I've talked to some farmers and other people that have seen this. It's associated, the UFOs are associated often with crop circles. Just watch any of the TV shows, History Channel, others, about UFO sightings, you'll see that they're connected to crop circles. I can only imagine that this is some sort of extraterrestrial training project to upgrade our software. Because these patterns, we talked about them a lot last time, they're mysterious looking, they're strange, they give you a certain feeling. I'm convinced human beings took over many of these types of crop circles, the big complicated patterns. Now, some people say that those are a hoax. I don't think so. I think this whole thing was intended to get people, because what do? Humans, anytime we come across something, we become creative with it, we work with it, just like music and art. Humans came along, saw these crop circles. I personally know from having talked to the circle makers that some of them were inspired by seeing these patterns and wondering if they could do anything that good themselves. And eventually they got tired of waiting out there in the cold and began to make some small ones. They said, wow, we can actually do this. How about we make it bigger? And the next time they go out and make it bigger, make it more complicated, they started getting media attention, and the whole thing kept growing. And now it's like a huge scene, especially in England, every summer, with helicopters and TV crews. The whole point is, I believe that this is designed to kind of upgrade our mental software, because you have to be pretty good mathematically and with geometry and trigonometry to do these at night in a couple hours. And I believe that probably the UFO occupants, whoever they are, you can probably get a pretty good judge of us by looking at our crop circle and seeing how evolved we are. So some of the ones we're seeing there are balls of light that have been seen over there. These are black and white drawings by Peter Sorensen, who's basically done, hundreds of these in terms of black and white drawings over the years. And, they're all really fascinating if you look at them. They're not like anything you've quite seen before. There's some information there, but we don't know exactly what it means.
What is this one here? This one that's up
That's called the rose petal, I believe. That's from the mid-'90s. That looks a lot like cymatics. You've seen the work of Dr. Hans Jenny. When you project sound into a surface, you'll get patterns that look just like this. Now, the circle makers may have not known that, but subconsciously they're working on the same wavelength because the information is coming from the subconscious. This one is a beautiful one from 1997, which some people call the goddess. Just a really beautiful-looking, simple but gorgeous-looking formation. And the circle makers that do these, most of these I know some of these circle makers. This is an interesting case here. What we're looking at is someone that actually saw it before it was drawn. You see in the lower right, she drew it.
Oh.
She was in the one at the upper left, and she had this impulse in her mind, and she sketched it, and 2 weeks later it appeared. It was the previous one we saw, the goddess formation. So this is actually a drawing by Stace Tussle of Denver, and she was there, and she had this idea in her mind. 2 weeks later it shows up. There's something going on here akin to remote viewing in all these circles.
We touched upon that last time.
This information going through another channel.
Right.
And
what's to make us think that the impulses, like we say, that we're so sure we know where impulses come from? Our own psychological impulses.
We don't.
Our images, how do we know? We claim them as our own, but there might be something going on, this symbiotic type of relationship.
No, Joe, that's so true, because even conventional psychology now is looking at the fact that we really don't know why we do what we do. It comes from the subconscious, and we rationally make up a reason later on. There's a number of books about this, especially Guy Claxton's book, Harebrained Tortoise Mind, How Intelligence Increases When You Think Less. And it's filled with studies that show you actually are happier with your decisions if you don't think about them so much and just do what feels right, because your subconscious can know a lot more than your conscious mind.
Well, first of all, we assume that we're a self.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Simeon Hein, me. Who is that? We have to find out who that is. And then realize that person we made up is not the author of what comes through.
Right, it comes from a deeper place. The inspiration I got for planetary intelligence or opening minds, I don't know where that inspiration came from. It's a feeling that there's something there, and it's your job to do it. But this is not something that your conscious mind can understand. It's more like creating music or art. It's there, you let it out.
It's a global resonance phenomenon from one perspective, that we're all tapped into to some extent, and some people become the vehicle for this information.
I would say, Joe, that du hast der Schwerpunkt gefunden.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Which is German for you have the point that you've hit the nail on the head, so to speak. And this is the point, is we've been bottled up for centuries by suppressing the subconscious mind.